Well, as you can see, here it is the end of October and we still have our hummingbird feeder up. Now that's kind of contrary to some of the old wives' tales that we've been hearing about, where you're supposed to take the hummingbird feeders down around Labor Day. According to our friends at the non-game program with the Wildlife Division, they tell us that we really should keep our hummingbird feeders up through the end of October in the state of Oklahoma. And the reason for that is that the hummingbirds will be migrating through, and so it gives them a little bit of extra energy on their migration patterns. Now truly we don't see the hummingbirds as much here at our studio gardens, and they've been kind of slacking off over the past few weeks. But the good thing about it is that we've not had to clean these as often because the temperatures have gotten cooler, so the mold doesn't grow on them quite as much. But again, it's really best to leave up the hummingbird feeders in Oklahoma through the month of October. Well, if you haven't done so, now is a great time to go ahead and clean out your nesting boxes. And we have a nice one here that actually opens from the side, which makes it very easy to clean it out. But unfortunately, as you can see, the only thing that we have to clean out of here is a wasp nest that's attached itself to the top of the box. Now, if you have a problem with that during the summertime, you can just take a little bit of Vaseline and dab it on the top where they're trying to build a nest, and that usually will keep them from doing so. But our friends from the non-game program told us not to be discouraged because we didn't get any chickadees or bluebirds in this particular house, but hopefully next year we will. But again, if you haven't cleaned any of the nests up, please do so now because you need to have it cleaned out for next year's nesting. Now remember also that they told us earlier in the season that it's really against the law to collect nests. So the best thing to do is when you take it out, break it up and scatter it on the ground or put it in the compost pile. If you work with a school or an educational system that would like to use a nest for educational purposes, you can get permission from the non-game program to do so. Otherwise, you need to just compost them. Now, if you find any mites or problems, remember you can dust a little bit of sulfur in there and then just try to clean it out. Really, they say the best thing is by cleaning out by hand or a brush or something and not really washing it out because it will shorten the life and cause mold and problems on the wooden boxes. And of course, there's all kinds out there to use, but be sure and clean them up, and that also goes for the purple martin houses. If you haven't cleaned those out yet, do so. Cap off the holes for the winter time and get us ready for next growing season for our birds. Well, it's also a very important time to clean out those bird feeders, especially since our busiest time for feeding birds is coming up in the winter time. Now, this is one of the ones that we've had here in our circle drive at our studio gardens, which is an all-cedar bird feeder. And it's really worked very nicely for us, but of course we've had some problems, and one of those is a lot of them you'll see drainage holes in them, and this particular one doesn't have one because you will get some rainfall that can kind of glue the seed together, so to speak, and so it can mold, and that's why it's very important for you to try to clean that out. And the best way is just to take a wire brush and break that loose, and you may even want to go ahead and drill a hole in there, but you can use a wire brush. We even find that the loofah sponge gourds come in nice and handy to clean up some of these things. But also I'd go to the trouble now to try to pull out the plexiglass if you can and clean that up and just give them a real nice cleaning before this heavy feeding starts again. Now it won't be too long either before the price of bird seed and feed starts to go up, so I'd encourage you to go and start doing some price comparisons and maybe buying some of your feed earlier on. And remember earlier this summer we talked about storing the bird seed, particularly the black hulled sunflower seed, and this is one way that I store it at home, and you can tell that I'm just about out, but I've got some in here, and it really keeps it pretty airtight, or at least it keeps the mice out. But remember we talked about weevil problems, and you'll have to kind of investigate it, but you can see there's even some small holes in this seed, and this is seed that I purchased that came that way. And what you want to be careful of is if there's holes in there and the weevils have started feeding on it, they've eaten the inside out, and that means that there's not going to be any meat inside there for the birds to actually enjoy. So you've got to be very careful when you purchase it. And obviously once you purchase it and you get it home and you're storing it, you don't want to have that same problem happen. And if you'll recall, I talked about using the no pest strips to actually kind of deter the weevils. And they'll come in a package like this, and they're primarily used, if you remember, to put inside and hang up to deter the flies. Well, what we do is we cut one of them open, and you'd want to use gloves on that particular case. And I talked about trying to glue them to the surface here, and I didn't have any luck with that. It kept falling off into the seed. So what I found was just this netting that usually comes with fruit and various products or produce. I just dropped one in there, and then I just hang it over the side and let the lid hold it in there, and that seems to work for me real nicely. Now remember, these nettings also come in handy to use for soot feeders during the winter as well. So not only look for the seed and try to get it cheaper, but think about the storage, especially during the winter, because the mice and the weevil are really going to be some bad problems, and you need to try to protect that as best you can, because it's obviously cheaper to buy in larger quantities. Now, when we've been doing these segments, I ran across recently a nice little inexpensive feeder that you might want to consider, especially for the kids. It's real easy for them to use. It's called a wild bird feeder, and it uses a liter pop bottle basically that you can recycle, and all you have to do is just take the label off and poke holes in the ends so you can hang it up. But they provide a funnel where you can fill it a little bit easier with the seed, and so you just pop the funnel in there, fill it up with the seed, whatever kind you want to use, and then basically like the cap, you just screw that on, then you can hang it upside down. The seed will come out as it empties, and the birds can enjoy that. And again, it's very inexpensive and somewhat readily available. It's really another new product that's coming out. Now, probably during the winter time, you're going to have some more problems with squirrels. We had the problem during the summer where the squirrels were coming in, and in just no time they were coming in and eating the sunflower seed, and we'd see 3 or 4 squirrels on this feeder alone, and we tried to place them in different places, but they'd still come in, and just one day or a couple of days, all of the seed would be gone. We also ran across a new product called Squirrel Away. And it comes in a little packet like this, again called Squirrel Away, and this packet will treat 25 pounds of seed. And you'll notice it says all natural, and the reason it's all natural is it's because it's capsaicin. And if you recall from previous segments in the show, capsaicin is the hot product of peppers, of hot peppers, of various peppers. And to give you a little background on that, the peppers, it's not really the seed or the wall, so to speak, that's hot. It's the little pustules or the cells inside the pepper wall, and once you pull them and harvest them, or you drop them, or you place them somewhere, that sprays and contaminates the inside of the pepper wall and the seeds. And they've just taken that and ground it up into a powder here, and then you mix it in with the seed, and you can see a little bit of it left there. It just looks like hot pepper, basically red pepper. And what the studies find on this is that the birds do not have the taste buds or the skin that it burns them where they can taste it, so they'll keep eating the seed. But the mammals, like the squirrels, will take a couple of bites, and boy, they're out of there in no time. And to date, since we started using it, we have cut down on our squirrel problems. Now, squirrels, some of them can take the heat a little bit more, so it gives you a variation in how to mix it up. And once you start using it, just the smell that's left in there will also help discourage them. Now, it's a product you don't want to overuse again, because you don't want them to build up a tolerance to it, but so far it's worked pretty nicely for us with deterring the squirrels. And of course, when the winter time comes along, they're going to be even hungrier, and it might be a nice option for you to consider. And that one we had to get through a mail order company. Well, for those of you who are also interested in bats, I wouldn't be discouraged either, because you can still monitor at your bat houses for bats that can take up occupancy even this time of year. Remember, the bat houses need to be 1/4 of a mile or near, or less actually, to water source. They also need at least 4 hours of sunlight, so primarily shade, and a height of 15 feet. And we've put ours up by our little cow creek here in some pecan trees, and to date we don't have any of the bats taking occupancy. Also, it's a great time to visit your garden centers to look for plants that have a lot of attractive berries and fruit on them, like viburnum or calocarpus, which is the beauty berry. those are attractive in your landscape and also provide a source of feed for the birds through the winter time. And as you know too, probably fall is a great time to be planting. So not only can you go to the garden centers and look for trees that have pretty brilliant color for fall, but also look for those plants that benefit wildlife too, and then you can get them in the ground during the next few weeks before the ground freezes. Now if you're not quite sure on what kind of plants do work well, remember the non-game program has a wealth of information from building birdhouses to attracting purple martins. Even there's one on attracting birds that lists some of the plants that you can put in the landscape, hummingbirds, winter birds, etc. And you can write to them at the non-game wildlife program through the Department of Wildlife Conservation, 1801 North Lincoln, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, 73105, and just get all kinds of information that will help you on building the houses, putting the nest boxes up, planting and everything. And again, that address is still on the screen, and I think you'll find it really very valuable in writing and trying to get some of the information, because the best time of bird feeding is coming up just around the corner during the winter months.